Good evening, everybody. Appreciate the attendance. My name is Liz Brown. I'm the Battalion Chief for CAL FIRE, serving here at the City of Highland. I was initial incident commander on the line fire when it first started. That day, I'm just going to go over just some brief synopsis of the day, just so you kind of understand how the day went. It was a very warm day, low humidity, high fire danger, and we started to have some afternoon starts in different areas. San Bernardino City was having them as well, and we had one in East Highland at the top of Bacon, and it was suspicious, but there was no one around, no one saw anything. So, okay, so we're aware that something is happening, but it's kind of how do we pre-plan that? Then we got the start in East Highland at the end of baseline. That one we got notified through a citizen who was driving by, and so they went to the firehouse. They talked to the guy, said, "Hey, there's a fire." Guys then notified our command center, and we started launching resources. First engine that got there, they started putting in a line and try to knock it down. There was a little bit of wind on it, afternoon wind. As you know, we get these onshore winds. Started to carry it a little bit. I got there, and our prevention officers were aware of these starts, so they were patrolling around. So they were there on the same, actually at the same time I was. So they immediately isolated the area. We had told them about the other start in Bacon, so they were already kind of knowing where they were going to go with it, which served us well in the end. As we started getting resources, there's reflex time. You know, East Highland is a more kind of isolated area, so it takes engines time to get there. Thankfully, our Forest Service partners, they saw the column and just sent a response, so that did help us with getting boots on the ground. Once it started hitting the hill and the knoll there, it sheeted, as you see with dry fuels and a little bit of wind, it started taking off. There was reflex time with getting our aircraft, which we eventually did, and we started trying to do what we can. But as you know, this person knew what they were doing, and unfortunately the conditions were right, and we just couldn't catch it because the terrain is super steep, hasn't burned in a really long time. And some of you that were here in 2010, the last fire I think was 2003 for that area, so it's been a long time that it's burned. And the footprint of the line fire is almost identical to a fire back in 1970, which was called the Bear Fire, but that burned from Big Bear down. This one burned opposite direction, but they're almost identical. So there was some challenges with terrain, and then it started late after, about 2 o'clock, and then going to nighttime, and there's reflex with that, and as you know, other fires started, so then now we're trying to get other resources. So it's just one of those things. This is how it goes in the summer. We're from California, we're used to it. So fast forward to now we're in a different plan mode. You know, on a fire, we don't have time to prepare other than just have engines ready to respond anywhere they need to go. Now we know the concern, we know the issue, so now we're going to transition our efforts not from firefighting to rainfall. The fire ended up being about a little over 43,000 acres. It burned all the way to the bottom of Big Bear, burned a little bit into Running Springs. Thankfully here in Highland, we didn't lose any structures. There was some fencing burned, but that's plastic, so unfortunately there's not a lot we can do about that. So now our efforts are now going to be to try and keep the homes from being destroyed by mud flows. So that's kind of where we're focusing our efforts. But any questions about the line fire? That's really a really quick snapshot. I'm sure you guys kind of know. I've been following it. So yes, ma'am.
Your crew did an amazing job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and you know they take a lot of pride here, and I'm super proud of the work they did. And I will tell you, our law enforcement partners were instrumental because nothing happens while we're doing the firefight. Someone has to get people out, and I spoke with Lieutenant Duper, and I said, I need people, we need to do evacuations. He's like, okay. And next thing I know, before I knew it, there was 10 deputies at the park in an instant. So it takes a village, and I really appreciate their help because then we could focus on the firefight while they help get people to safety. So it does take a village. So I want to recognize them because they did a phenomenal job for us.
Share that, you know, thanks to the efforts from the first responders, you know, as Liz mentioned, we didn't lose any structures. So we're very fortunate there, but as she mentioned, now it's time to prepare for potential debris flow. So following any wildfire, you lose a lot of vegetation, and that vegetation is really what keeps your hillside stable. So Anytime you're dealing with these types of fires, you're at higher risk for debris flows, flooding, and following the fire, there's a group of technical experts from the state, federal government known as the BEAR and WORT team. So it's a burn area emergency response team and the watershed emergency response team. So these are technical experts. Unfortunately, they're very good at what they do because there's been so many fires throughout California, and they've had a lot of experience, assessing the damage and really coming up with projections of where or which areas are most at risk. So our team, our city team and the county flood control team worked really closely with the technical experts to identify areas of concern, and based on their analysis, they prepared this report that is officially finalized, and it's actually posted on the city website, posted on the county website, and I'll actually have some links at the end where you can find those reports. So again, we used the reports to really guide our preparation efforts. We know which areas are most at risk, and again, we can better prepare, better put in some mitigations to at least divert some of the flows that we could expect. So this is a map showing the entire burn area, and very detailed. I don't expect you to be able to read through some of these details. They're actually in that report. But this really shows the intensity, and then based on the intensity, the potential likelihood for debris flows, and you are most at risk during intense rainfall. So really what that means is you get a lot of rainfall in a short duration, short period of time. So the trigger points for this fire are actually about 2/3 of an inch in an hour. And I'll go into a little more detail in a couple slides. So again, our city team has been hard at work. Our public works team has been going through, cleaning out all of our channels, our storm drains, to make sure that everything's clean and we have the capacity to really absorb any debris that comes our way, any water that comes our way. And again, I mean, this has been underway the last 2 months, and we're wrapping up those efforts. And following each storm, we're going to be regularly checking these areas to make sure we're keeping them clear. Other things that we're doing, we're putting up K-rail. You see some K-rail here. This is a historical K-rail, but there's going to be K-rail put in throughout the city to again try to protect certain areas. Debris racks, making sure we're putting grates to catch some of the debris. So, and I guess to kind of capture what I mean by debris and mud flows, really. Any rock, any shrubs, ash that's been coming from the hillside. That's really what we're trying to mitigate, so to speak. I guess another thing I forgot to mention is, so we have some K-rails, we have some gabion walls, debris racks. We're putting in as many mitigations throughout the city to again hit the hot spots, the areas that are identified in the report as most at risk, and again, to try to protect the city and the residents and the visitors. And as you can see on the map, right, the entire eastern portion of Highland was impacted by the fire, and a lot of those areas are actually upstream of us, so it's really important that we're working closely with the county, and the county flood control district has been a great partner. They're also going through the same efforts. There's a huge watershed. You have all your big basins, your large channels, and if you've been driving by Green Spot and some of the other major routes in our city, you've probably seen some action out there, county, with their crews doing the cleaning and grubbing in addition to our crews. So now I'm not a weatherman, but I'll give you a 101 on the National Weather Service. So National Weather Service is what we recommend you follow to get the latest and greatest weather alerts. The Weather Service will issue 2 types of alerts. You have a flood watch, which is heavy rainfalls expected in the near future. This is really anywhere between 12 and 48 hours. And then you have what's called a flash flood warning. So that means that flooding is imminent, it's already here, or it's coming soon. And these really alerts are set up based on different trigger points. So earlier I mentioned the rain intensity. So based on the different intensity levels, you'll get some of these alerts. And because the eastern portion of Highland was really entirely within the above or below the burn scar, you'll be seeing a lot of these alerts whenever you have a large storm. So the somewhat good news is, based on the prediction for this upcoming winter, we're in a La Nina year, which means that we're expected to be below average precipitation and colder temperatures. That doesn't necessarily mean that some of the trigger points won't be met. It just means that you'll have a drier than average winter season, right? So it's still really important to prepare. One important thing to note is, and really it's just a reminder for people, if a road is flooded, please don't cross. Every year you see on the news, you hear people needing to get rescued, and again, you don't want to put yourself in harm's way. So don't try to drive across flooded roads. The fun facts here are not so fun, but a reminder that 6 inches of water can reach the bottom of most cars. 1 foot will actually float the vehicle, and then if you have an SUV, it's really easy, or a truck, it's really easy to think you can cross a body of water, but 2 feet is all it takes to even take on those vehicles. So please don't cross water. We have about three locations that are historical flooding locations here in the city. We are prepared to shut those areas down. We're monitoring those very closely. If we see that the water levels are hitting a certain point, we'll proactively shut the road down and put up some signage, and we ask people that they follow the detours. We are putting up some detours in advance on our city website should we ever need to shut the roads down. And these 3 points are actually on Highland Avenue, right over the City Creek Bridge. So this is just by the 210, and on Baseline, same creek, and Green Spot is the other point. This is east of the East Valley Water headquarters.
Here in the City of Highland, we contract with the Sheriff's Department to act as your police department. This is a unique community. We're very lucky because we also have CAL FIRE. So behind our immediate contracts, we do have access to a lot of other resources. They're not always queued up or ready to go, but we have that ability to pull some of those triggers, which is what happened in the line fire. So that worked out very well. And I got to tell you, I was very impressed watching Liz and her folks work. That was phenomenal. They did a great job, and they truly did save a lot of structures, a lot of lives. So our role in anything like this, whether it be a fire or potential flooding, as we're talking about now, is to, obviously we're the emergency first responders along with our engines and stations that are here in town. So we will respond to those things, but we're not super equipped to handle a lot of that stuff, especially flooding. So we're prone to the same challenges as everybody else. We're not going to necessarily be able to get over big flows and things like that. We are trying to, through some of our other resources, secure some vehicles and things like that. So in the case that we did have to do some rescues, those are things that we're all working on at the city level. So we have some resources in place. But our primary job is to support the fire department, especially in a fire, but in this situation as well. So the way it traditionally works, we are the ones that will send out emergency notifications and messages. So just like in the fire, we will help with evacuations and whatnot, but we also are the ones that control the system to send out notifications for either a warning or an evacuation order. The way we do that, we have 3 or 4 different systems. We have like reverse 911. We can do something where we can target cell phone towers and we can dump messages to all the phones in that area, but those aren't super precise. So there is a chance you may or may not get messages that don't apply to you. That may have happened during the fire. You might have seen that. But the best way is to sign up for what we call TENS, which is our telephone emergency notification system. And that's where you sign up, you put your cell phone number on there, and we can send specific messages to you because we know where you live, if that makes sense. So one of the things we're asking folks to do, we're going to encourage it in the social media, is to sign up so you can get those messages that we can send directly to you. We know then that you are a resident, we know where you live, as opposed to making kind of the guesses and sending out the blanket messages. There's also a difference in some of those systems and how much we can put out, the amount of text or characters. So if you experienced in the fire, you may have gotten multiple messages. Some of them can be very short because we have just a little bit to work with. Those messages, those warnings, those evacuation orders, when they do come out, I can promise you those are going to be decisions made at the head of the city by the city manager, the public works director, or the fire chief, with all of us in concert. And when those messages do come out, we have to take them serious. Just like in the fire, it means there's imminent danger. Now, hopefully, again, with watching, with the support of the state and the county and everybody, we have geologists and meteorologists that are trying to give us advanced warning. There will be situations where we will be set up ahead of time. We may have extra personnel out. We may be proactively working because we know there's a storm or a rain system approaching. But there may be something that just, shows up on us out of the blue. We'll have to react when those things happen too. So just pay attention to all that social media, that stuff that's coming out. I can answer questions when we're kind of done with the presentation a little bit more in depth on our role. But it is important, and Liz and I talked about this, that we want to remind people, even in the case of a fire. So if an evacuation order comes out and we're, in a sense, ordering people out of an area because of the safety, it is 100% your choice to leave or not leave, okay? We can't force people out. But once you are out of that area, you may not be able to get back in. By law, we have to then secure that area. We have to make sure that that's safe, not only for the first responders working inside, but to prevent injuries from people going back. So like Liz talked about, in the fire situation, we don't have time to prepare. And so there was a lot of scenarios we saw where, we got to get home because I have an elderly parent or a pet, or, a lot of people had horses and things that they had to move in and out. And so in this situation, we're going to ask that you be prepared to go. If those things come out, please have your pets, your family ready to go, and so that makes it easier. We don't have to deal with those challenges once we lock a place down. So I know that was kind of real quick overall. We'll all be here to answer questions and whatnot afterwards. Just the takeaways for us, sign up for the app, get on board with that so we can get correct messaging out there. And we are here to support whatever direction the city wants to take. We talked about closures, things like that. Those are things that are all being discussed, and when is it appropriate for us to shut down certain locations? Because we don't want people to risk driving across 2 feet of water and create a further rescue effort or something that takes other resources away. So,
For us on the fire side, when you see that flood warning and evacuation, fire's different than flooding, right? And what we have seen with the El Dorado burn scar and the challenges that Yucaipa has gone through, as well as Seven Oaks and all those communities therein, that they have had fatalities, okay? And so floods are not to be taken lightly. When you're talking about water and a forward movement of mass on a large scale, it has to be taken serious. And what we certainly don't want to do is create burnout, right? You cry wolf too many times. So like you said, in a community decision, we have to weigh the pros and cons and do we already have soil saturation from previous rains, and what's this storm look like? So what I can tell you is we're going to take it very serious when we do have to pull that trigger. And in that, it's a preparation for the long game. Because yes, it may be quite a while before we can allow you back in. As we saw for any of you that were here in 2010 when we had those homes destroyed, they were destroyed. And what we have seen on the burn scar and flooding in Yucaipa, my counterpart, Grant Malinowski, has had to deal with is there is no stopping. There is no, I'm going to survive it. My 10 sandbags are going to help me. That's not how that goes with this type of mitigation. So I can't stress enough the importance, if we're asking you, it is as a last resort, and we hope you take it serious. What I loved about the line fires is people complied. Thank God, God bless you for complying. And we're hoping we get the same compliance and more so with this. And the flood waters we've had, We've had to effect rescues in flood channels with some of our homeless population, and that's another thing that we have to be concerned about, not only making sure your homes are safe and you're out, but we also have a homeless population that sometimes we don't know where they're at, and we have to, divert resources to save them, as well as people thinking they can cross, and we've had fatalities. We've had people washed away on the Boulder Bridge. So, it's extremely dangerous with water, and I just wanted to make that known so that way we're not taking unnecessary risks, so I can focus my crews on your home protection and not some of these ancillary things that could be avoided. So I just wanted to make that distinction.
One last thing to add on the emergency readiness. So we do have an EOC, Emergency Operations Center, with the city that we're ready to activate, and we're planning on activating that whenever we see that there's a large storm coming, and we have emergency action plans in place to make sure that we're hands on deck, we're ready to respond. We, prior to any large storm events, we're also going to be staging equipment next to these hot spots to be able to clean up roads if there is some debris, and really keep circulation open, not just for residents but also first responders. If you're familiar with the city, right? You live here, you know that there's really three main east-west routes. So, I mentioned earlier Highland, Baseline, and Green Spot. So, really those are the main routes we want to keep open. And again, we're staging, we're getting ready. We have plans in place and regular meetings to make sure that we're staying up to date and really updating the action plan based on most recent events. So with that, I'm going to really touch on what you can do to prepare. So if I didn't mention it earlier, anytime there's a fire, of course you're at risk, but it's not just one season. We're talking about the next 2 to 5 years. So it takes anywhere between 2 and 5 years for vegetation to grow and to get back to normal, in quotes, so to speak. So you always have to be ready. This is a nice graphic from San Bernardino County Public Health. It's your roadmap to readiness. The one big point is having a plan. Talking to your family, making sure you know alternate meetup spots, alternate routes, having a contact list. That's very important. There's times where cell phones are down, so it's really important to really flesh out some of these details. Have a local meetup spot, friend, relative. It's important to have that and make sure that your family's aware of what that plan is. Another thing which I'll talk about on the next slide is having an emergency kit. The best time to get all this ready is now. You never know when you're going to need to leave. There's a potential that you're creating this kit and it's just sitting there and it's really easy to not revisit it. But it's always important to go through your checklist, make sure you have everything that you might need. Again, touching on the evacuation plan, that's number 3 here. And if you have any sort of special needs, any sort of medication that you need, you got to plan for that. Pets, really, I have pets myself. They're really part of the family, so you need to account for them too. Most importantly, it's staying informed. Monitor the weather. Follow all of the social medias for the city and the county, CAL FIRE, sheriffs, and really just, again, practice the plan. Talk about it regularly with your family. Okay, so let's talk about the kit. Most importantly, you need water, you need food, you need to be able to have anywhere between 3 and 5 days worth of food, and you want it to be non-perishable, right? Power goes out. You want to be able to have a supply of food that you can just take with you and isn't going to spoil. We suggest a radio, flashlight, any sort of medications, and important documents and cash in case you need to show those anywhere. And then I guess other safety tips too is make sure you have gas in your vehicle, you have your phones charged, and other personal items. So if you go to ready.gov/plan, there's a comprehensive list of items to get ready. And there's a QR code here that you can take a picture of, and it'll take you straight to the page. Another item that we recommend people getting or people doing is knowing your risk. If you go to the floodsmart.gov site, there's some maps showing the flood zone. So if you're in a flood zone, we highly recommend you get flood insurance. And there's different programs to be able to get flood insurance at a, I guess, more affordable rate than other insurance providers. Most insurance policies don't by default cover flood situations, so it's really important to really look into that. And I guess another thing to note too is there's typically a 30-day waiting period, so you want to be able to get that done as soon as possible and really be prepared should you actually need the insurance and it's into effect. All right, so there's different ways of staying informed. We have our city website, and in there you'll see links to our Facebook. We're very active on Facebook. We posted our tonight's meeting there and some other city events. During the line fire, we posted some updates. So a very important site to follow. And then just kind of generally, not even related to flood, but just general requests. So we count on the residents to be our eyes and ears, and we're not able to help solve problems that we don't know exist. So we really count on you to tell us where these are. And we highly recommend that you go to the website, report any issues. Of course, you can pick up the phone and call, but a very good tool, goes straight to a system and then gets diverted to the appropriate department to make sure that your concerns are addressed. So very important. We also have a city newsletter bi-weekly. Very good way to stay informed in the latest and greatest city happenings, but obviously for the purposes of tonight's meeting, we'll be posting additional safety tips and other emergency information, excuse me. Another great resource is the county website. Very robust, a lot of resources there for different types of emergency situations. For flood specifically, they have a manual for homeowners to really guide you on appropriate sandbag placement and different precautions. There's also a video showing you how to fill your sandbags and how to stack them, how much you'll need. Very good tool. And then speaking of sandbags, we give these out for free annually before each storm. They're located at every fire station. Actually, there's some notes here. So at Fire Station 1 and 3, we're just handing out bags. But there's bags and sand at the Fire Station 2. That's in East Highland, off of Baseline. And thanks to East Valley Water District for their partnership, they're also offering sand and sandbags at their headquarters and also at the Sterling National Resource Center. And lastly, we do have sand available for residents at our City Hall. All right, so with that, we'd like to thank our partners at the county, the Flood Control District, East Valley Water. We do have representatives from both agencies here that are able to answer any questions you might have. And again, it takes a village. It's a group effort. A lot of the work that we're doing, it takes a lot of effort from all partners and communication, but we really need help from the residents. And again, we appreciate the participation. And one thing that would be helpful is really spreading the word to your neighbors, right? This video will be posted on our city webpage, but we really rely on the residents to talk to their neighbors and spread the word and look after each other. So I really want to thank you all for being here.